Hello and welcome to the Stories with Sash podcast, a podcast in which we try and solve motoring-related problems and other bits and pieces as well. On this episode of Stories with Sash, I am back with, well, I'm going to call them the OG gang. It's Mike and Rob. Hello, chaps. How are we?
I'm good, thanks, Sash. How are you?
I'm delighted. I'm delighted to be able to speak to you. And Rob, how are you?
I'm good. Did you come up with that OG gang just then on the fly?
I did, yeah.
Please don't do it again.
Yeah.
Well, right. Well, hello. We'll just talk. Brothers and sisters, whatever we want to, call each other nowadays. As I just mentioned, this is a safe space podcast in which we can try and discuss what we've been up to. So, guys, it's actually been a little while, and Rob, you've been you've been busy doing whatever you've been doing and so on. But actually, me and Mike have been busy on the old Stories of Sash podcast. And if you haven't tuned into any of the previous episodes, please do tune in. There's an episode regarding the back end of the second half of the Mongol rally trip. And there's an episode coming out. Actually, no, this is all irrelevant because by the time people will listen to this podcast, those episodes would have already been out. So ignore what I'm saying. It's fine. So what's been going on then, chaps? Tell me. You've been hiding. You've been hibernating. I know we're in a lockdown in the UK, and it doesn't apply to you, Rob. But you got to tell me something exciting's been happening.
Yeah, go on, Rob. You go first. You've been out for a few weeks. You must have something interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
No, well, I mean, I was sort of busy getting ready for my 4 weeks off, which I'm now on. I'm now 4 days into my 4 weeks off because obviously all my leave sort of accumulated, and then HR dropped the bombshell on us that we needed to sort of use it or lose it before the end of the year. So I'm off for a whole month, but there was a lot of being off for a month. It's not really conducive to happy business operations. So everyone was like, you need to get everything done before you go on leave. So yeah, that's part of why I've been a little bit absent recently.
I think we can forgive you. On that note. So is there anything motoring related that you're going to do with your leave, or you haven't thought that far ahead?
Well, I did take the Golf for a service, which was and well, the service itself wasn't too expensive, but the guy was kind enough to go over everything that was wrong with the Golf.
That's how they get you.
Well, I mean, this thing he's backed it up. He's not been like he wasn't. I mean, there's no hiding the fairly significant oil leak from the cam case, which which will need fixing. Things like that. Apparently, the brake pads are down to 30%, which I've probably only got myself to blame for, to be honest.
Yeah, I was going to say that's probably your doing entirely. I bet.
Car is probably your doing, Rob, to be fair.
Pardon?
Most of what's wrong on that car is probably your doing.
I'm not 100% sure the oil leak. I'm not sure you can lay that at my door.
I was going to say
brakes...
VW is the byword for quality, isn't it? I'm sure your car's demonstrating that quite well.
Well, he told me something quite worrying, which is going to be a piece of buying advice for anyone who's in the market for a 2012 Golf R, is buy the manual gearbox. He said because sometimes the DSGs just let go for no reason. And he was like, yeah, you bought the manual, which is a good buy because A, you can't find them here. They're like hen's teeth. And B, in fact, he was like, I'm fairly confident you've probably got the only manual one in the country. So I was like, that's pretty interesting.
Oh,
that's the first piece of advice. And the second one was like, yeah, sometimes DSG's just around about 70, 80,000 miles in UK terms, just let go. You come to your car one day, you put it into drive, and it just throws a light that says gearbox error and doesn't do anything.
Oh.
And then it's $3,000 for a new gearbox in pounds.
Lovely.
But yeah, no, the grand total of everything on top of the service that he would recommend getting fixed at some point. Would you either of you like to hazard a guess at the bill in pounds is probably is a good shout?
Yeah, pounds would be good because I don't really know.
Well, let me just do the conversion quickly, so that I can.
So he's done a thorough inspection over your vehicle.
He's done a very thorough inspection.
So everything that's currently will need to be done in the near future, if not immediately. So this is the grand total, right? I reckon How
I'll
many
tell you.
miles?
Shall I list you off? Shall I list you off everything he thinks that needs doing?
Yes.
Please.
Yeah. Let me just bring up the invoice. Talk amongst yourselves. Right. Here we go. So service, normal service. That was all fairly standard. That was about £300. So that's okay for a service. It's sort of like a semi-performance car.
Yeah.
Do you want to hazard a guess at how much 4 spark plugs costs?
Oh, what a treat. I'm gonna guess £15 a spark plug.
Yeah, I would agree with Sash there. That was going to be my guess.
They're about £10 a unit,
Oh,
Whoa,
which
bargain.
actually isn't too bad.
ah.
But he has
40
charged me
quid
for.
for spark plugs. Bloody hell.
Yeah, okay, but you buy spark plugs for your Fiat, and that you buy them at the corner shop with a Freddo.
No, Sash just gets old spark plugs out of different cars in the scrapyard. Let's be real.
He just wedges them in and just makes it work. So I mean, the whole service that wasn't too bad. But the deferred service, as he's put it down, and then he's put it in sort of order of things that are like most
Severe.
worrying. Most
Right.
worrying being at the end, where it's the valve cover gasket. And that's all the things that are related to the valve cover gasket, which apparently is leaking significantly. So we've got motor mounts, so engine mounts, suspension control arm bushing, lower front, brake discs we've spoken about, front and rear. Valve cover gaskets, and control arm bushes on the back.
So that's what he's advised.
And then
needs to
because
get done.
obviously the suspension needs to come apart, it then will need wheel alignment, laser wheel alignment tracking, which obviously that also needs to be done after you've taken the suspension apart. So would you guys like to hazard a guess at what we are looking at?
Go on, Sash, you first.
So this cost you've got obviously includes all the labour and the parts and the VAT or whatever they have over there and stuff like that.
So we've got parts, labour, and then shop supplies at 3%. I don't know what that is. Probably toilet paper, so the lads can.
Well, I'll do an overall figure. I won't break it down, but I reckon
put a car wash on there.
Wow.
They did actually wash my car when they did that, and that was the bargain price of £6.
Oh wow,
Lovely.
And VAT at 5%, so or 5% VAT.
Unfortunately, I don't get that sort of service with my local Saab specialist. But I'm going to guess for all of that, somewhere around the region of 1,500 quid.
I was going to say £2,000.
How many?
2, maybe 2.5 tops. 2.
Both commendable guesses. You're not far off, actually.
Don't tell me it's more than Mike's.
It's not more than Mike's. It's between the two figures that Mike stated.
Okay. How much?
The exact figure is £2,163.
£2,163.
So today's exchange rate. I mean, I could save £6 and not have them wash it.
I think when you're spending that much money to get your car rectified, it would be nice for it to look clean at the end, and that £6 probably is not going to make much of a difference.
£2,000.
For that amount of money, they could throw in the car wash. To be honest,
they could do that. And just to put the viewers or the listeners in perspective here, so how much did you pay for that car in pounds roughly when you bought it? When was it? In July, June?
Well, I mean, this is slightly embarrassing.
Well, I'm just do you remember?
in pounds, based on based on the current exchange rate, I don't know what it would have been in July when I bought it.
I mean, it hasn't changed substantially.
Based on today's exchange rate, £7,200.
£7,200, which is a good price.
That's not bad. You said you're embarrassed. That's not a bad price.
But when you put that into perspective, I have currently in the country at the moment been looking at the same model car with the same amount of mileage I saw one the other day. Okay, admittedly, it's probably in better condition than mine, but they are being sold for £11,500. So I don't know why there was like a slump when I bought mine, but now they're now back on the internet for £11,000.
And is that a manual one?
No. That's the other thing, is the manuals go for a higher price than the automatics because they're more rare.
But Yeah.
I could do all of those repairs and sell it now and make money.
But you're not
Theoretically.
going to, are you?
No, because I quite like that car. It's quite nice.
I mean, it's good. I mean, I'm just doing the maths. I mean, based on what you did, so you have a potential bill of 30% of what you paid for the car to fix your car. I mean, I know none of these necessarily, all of them are drastic, but they will need to get done in the near future.
Yeah.
I would dearly like. I'd love to get like one of my Fiat Cinquecentos assessed for how much it would cost to put it back to like reasonable condition. Actually, having said that, I've done it all myself, so it should be £0. But yeah,
I mean, there are some things on that list as well that I could conceivably do myself, like the brake discs and the pads. If I get the parts, I can just. That's really not rocket science.
No.
And yeah, I mean, theoretically, I could probably do the cam cover as well, but that I might leave to a professional. And obviously, I can't do the tracking, so any of the suspension stuff is going to be, nigh on impossible for me to do.
Done
so
professionally.
No, you can do the suspension yourself and then go and get it done.
Tracked.
Yeah.
I could. That is true. That is true for sure.
Well, the thing is, actually, this might lead on to the next part of the conversation quite nicely, actually, because Mike, do you have any interesting things that you've been up to, car related or semi-car related, over the past couple of weeks since we spoke?
Well, I've still got a shocker of a Hyundai i20 sat on the front driveway.
Oh, yes.
Need to get rid of that, which isn't happening at the minute.
What's
that?
Why is the i20 not moving? They're quite a popular car.
Because the gearbox, or I'm just going to say transmission at this point, the transmission is basically toast.
So a fundamental problem with the vehicle.
Yeah, I mean, it's not
with the drivetrain. If anyone's interested in buying a used i20, please do contact Mike Hargreaves.
Yes, Instagram handle the following, telephone number 077 whatever it is.
Mike.Hargreaves at this rust bucket could be yours.co.uk.
Well, actually, it's not rusty. Everything else mechanically and looks wise, apart from the dent in the bonnet, is all great.
Just the bonnet.
The fundamental component that connects the engine to the wheels is buggered.
Yeah, the bit that makes it a car and not just a good garden ornament is the bit that's broken.
Was an i20 ever a good garden ornament?
In my gardens, yeah, they look really good. Yeah.
Does it sort of? It looks really nice next to the BM.
Yeah. And speaking of the BM, that also needs to go in for it needs to go in for a service and an MOT. And when I say go in for a service, I'm going to service it.
I'd be curious to know. Well, I was going to say when you say go in for a service, whether you were going to do what I've done, which I think would be interesting, because I'd be interested to know.
I might take it in, get it all cost up to get it all back to normal. Which, bearing in mind, in mine includes things like reattaching parts of the bumper. So.
Oh, I've got that problem as well. Yeah, no, the
headlights, getting rust fixed on the bonnet, getting trim reattached, getting the exhaust pipe valve sorted out, getting some leaky tappets in the engine sorted out. It's kind of an extensive job, to be honest. So
I think I'd like you to do that so we can compare prices on things that are wrong. Because performance-wise, I think the BM and the Golf are pretty evenly matched.
Yeah, maybe.
I think that's been slightly generous, but I mean,
generous to me.
The BM?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, Rob, it's like your car's like over 10 years newer than Mike's as well. Don't forget.
Yeah, but the engine's much smaller.
I know it is, but modern tech, and yours is turbocharged and what have you. I mean, what's interesting to hear, chaps, actually, is touch wood. My Saab is in pretty good condition, actually, and I don't think it really requires any sort of form of attention in that respect.
Remind us of the mileage on your Saab.
Well, it's approaching 30,000 miles.
So it's not really running yet.
Well,
on it basically.
I'd just like to say, as well as that, I mean, it cost the grand total of less than either of your cars. So
that is true.
It's a good vehicle, the old jet fighter for the road.
You were saying the other week about how much nicer to drive my Bora was.
No. So the thing is that the thing is that I was foolish back then, and
You're really foolish.
I retract statements of praise
Well,
for your.
it's not that. I think. Do you know what it is? And sorry, Mike. I know I've taken the fame away from you for a second, but it's more.
Yeah.
It's more. I think you really need to get used to exploit, like making the best use of the powertrain and the engine, like performance wise. Not only because it's diesel, but because I just think it's different to what I'm used to, and it's taken me a little while to. I mean, bearing in mind, I've only had the car for it's come up to 3 months now. It does take a little bit of time to get used to a vehicle, you know, and making the most out of it. And now I'm enjoying it more, you know, which is good. And to be fair, I got into a petrol car the other day, and although I do like petrol cars, as you guys know, it's kind of nice having that torquey diesel engine. Not gonna lie, because you just got that sort of, you feel that surge of torque. You know, it's quite nice.
Yeah.
No.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
This is interesting to watch you do a 180 on diesel-powered cars.
That's the thing. You've always been so against, like, you've always been very, very purist as it goes with cars. But now you're all of a sudden twin turbo Vauxhall Vectra, and you're happy days.
Yeah, no, it's not a Vauxhall Vectra. I just like to point that out. It's not that. No, do you know what it is, chaps? It's just it's a nice car. I like the Saab, and it's something a bit different. And did you know that Saab
I can mention the
drivers?
cup holders again.
No. I'm not going to mention anything about. But Saab owners are statistically on the road the most well-educated people.
Except you.
That is the worst statement to make. Like, that is such a typical Saab driver thing to say.
No, it's not, because all Saabs, like most Saab drivers, the typical stereotype was that they were either dentists or engineers.
I thought it was architects.
Oh, and architects as well. And architects. So all of these
hang on, of those three professions, architects excluded from that. Of the other two, dentists and engineers, are those people that generally have any imagination whatsoever?
You say that though, Rob. They're the wise choice, you know. And I think there is a lot to.
That is a good point. There are lots of engineering firms that just have a fleet of Vauxhall Vectras for their pool cars.
It's not a Vauxhall Vectra. It isn't a Vauxhall. There is nothing in the interior of that car that is Vauxhall. Even Vauxhall never even did that configuration of engine with the 2 turbos. Like Saab did.
That is a Vauxhall, and that is the gear knob.
Yeah, you keep banging on about this. It's not Vauxhall. I'm pretty sure that isn't Vauxhall. But whatever it is, whether it's a Vauxhall or not, I'd just like to say, I think there's a lot to commend a young petrol head, right? Who
owning a diesel.
No, it's.
Yeah,
I just like to point something out, chaps, as well. Is that you guys own diesels when, crucially, right? You own diesels at a time where you didn't need to own a diesel, right? Rob, you bought a diesel.
Well, I did 20,000 miles a year in my car.
Yeah, no, I get that, Mike. I get that, but the point being, I've lost my train of thought.
How many miles do you do in the Saab that justifies you owning a diesel? I didn't realise you were now a printer toner salesman.
No, it's not that. Right, I just like to point something out. I didn't get the car because it was diesel. Like, the car just happened to be diesel and just happened to be available in this condition and spec. If it was a petrol one, I would have got a petrol one as well. I just
not
as well. Sorry, you know what I mean.
He's gonna change his name legally to Wing Commander Sash. Once he's got 2 jet fighters.
Rob, I'm hoping that in the near future you will see the jet fighter, and you'll see the magnificence of it. Mike's already seen it.
My friend from school had one.
Yeah, but he had
the automatic
one. He had a Slushmatic. You can't.
I don't know why he had a Slushmatic.
And his one was in beige.
Yes, both valid points, but it is the same car.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. But it's like what is it? It's like what you were on about at the beginning of this podcast. It's like the DSG version of your car isn't as good as a manual to the purists, right? And I know I'm not saying the Saab is like, you know, the ultimate track car. It isn't, you know, far from it.
But your Oh, please, Sash. Can we like put some sweet arrow on it?
No,
That would
no.
be great, actually, for the listeners of this podcast to have the inappropriate track day car track day.
No,
So
no.
people can turn up in their Fiat Cinquecentos,
They're Saabs.
their Saabs,
Right,
their
chap.
Vauxhalls,
I think
maybe
you're
a
missing
Maestro.
Right. So for years, I'd just like to point something out. For years, I have been slated by both of you two for owning terrible cars, thirsty cars that don't work. And the moment I actually listen to your advice and get something sensible, economical, something that's not going to explode all the time, you slate me for it, saying I'm no longer a purist anymore.
I don't recall ever saying buy a Saab.
No, you didn't. But you said get something that actually works, which it does. It does.
Oh yeah,
work,
it does. It does work.
And you
but
said,
you, did buy a
you
Vauxhall.
said you're always late to everything because you always end up on the side of the road in a cloud of steam.
Yeah.
Then and now I've got a vehicle that doesn't do that. And
But you're still late for everything.
Well, yeah.
But now at least you can't blame the car.
No, now that's why I got the one with the second turbo, so I can get there even quicker when I am running late.
Always make up time.
But this actually leads quite nicely to the next point, because the point is, chaps, having a sensible yet slightly quirky car as your daily runabout provides you the means to get something, that maybe isn't something that's dailyable. That's not the word. You know what I'm trying to say? Something that you don't need to, like a weekend thing, a toy, right? And that's what something like the Saab enables you to do. It enables you to get a toy, which leads, I suppose, maybe to the point of this podcast, which is, I know we've spoken about project cars before, but both myself and Mike are in the process of obtaining what I think is probably one of the most valuable attributes or assets, should I say, of a petrol head, which is space to work on your car or your project car, which means a garage, right? So I'm really excited about this because and people just don't really understand who are not into cars. And I don't know whether you understand this, Rob. I'm sure you appreciate it at least. Having a garage this what I've been dreaming of the past 25 years, pretty much. I've wanted this for forever, and I'm finally going to get it. Well, when
You've been dreaming for 25 years of having a garage.
Well, I'm over exaggerating a bit, but you see the point that I mean. I mean, every true motoring enthusiast who likes working on stuff and likes taking stuff apart and fixing their car and modifying it or what have you, always wants a garage, because there's nothing worse than doing it on your driveway or doing it in a car park or doing something like that in the cold, wind, rain. And now I don't have to do that anymore because I'm going to have a garage that's not just on its own. It's in the back of the house that I'm going to be moving into. It's got electricity linked to it as well, and lights and plug sockets.
Yeah, garages are good.
Very impressive.
And Mike,
electricity also top notch.
Because just for the viewers' background on this, so my parents have had a garage. They live in a flat, so the garages are separate to the actual flat itself, and unfortunately don't have any electricity linked to them or anything like that, which for me was a bit annoying. But having that space as a kid was just amazing. Currently it's storing one of my cars in there and it's just full of junk, but the point is that it gives you that space to do these sort of things, and enables you to become a more rounded human being.
I mean, yeah, I wouldn't say more rounded human being, but it's definitely like it was high on my priority list of things to get in a house. Yeah. I mean, just lead me on to that point where you're saying there about your parents getting this one. Is that the house that I grew up in, that my parents still live in now, that they've had for, that's about 20, 26, 27 years, something like that. So they bought that house and they had the choice between the one they're in now and another one at the time, which had like 2 or 3 more bedrooms, was in a better location. It now has a swimming pool in it, like a full-on, essentially like what it would potentially be a mansion, or this one, which had a garage. My dad just could not go for the other house. He just had to go for the one with the garage. And then I've actually never told you this as well. He installed quite a large engine winch in there, which I'm about to receive as well for the new house.
Oh.
Yeah, so he's got a big steel I-beam that goes across the roof of it that he installed with an engine winch on it. So I'm going to be having that.
Because I should point out for the viewers as well, Mike, you're on a similar pathway to moving place to somewhere, maybe even with a double garage. which is going to trump my my little single garage. But
well, yeah, it's not a definite on the double garage yet, but yeah, definitely a garage.
Possibly, but yeah, you never know. I mean, a double would be the ultimate dream. But I stepping stones.
If I might just bring this away from discussions surrounding real estate for a moment, what project cars are you planning on working on in your garages, chaps?
Well, this is actually, it's almost like you've read the script, Rob. This is actually going to be the next point of my conversation as to what to do. I mean, Mike's got some probably better ideas than I have at the moment. I'm debating. This is up for discussion. But Mike, I don't know if you want to share any thoughts that you might have.
Yeah, sure. I feel like yours is going to be more of a in-depth discussion and slating of some of your ideas. So I'll just go ahead with what I've got to begin with. So I've been eyeing up some E36s, some E36 3 Series in my classic BMW fashion. They're actually still surprisingly not that expensive.
It's because they're the worst 3 Series, but anyway, we won't go into that.
And I know you hate like all the mods and all the rest of it, but I think the E36 3 Series looks great. Slam down on coilovers with splitter on the front and aero on the back. I'm going to do of it in my car.
Do you know how Sash a moment ago was saying about how people who drive Saabs are the most well-educated motorists in the world?
Yeah.
Me and you driving a BMW and a Volkswagen don't really have that sort of pedigree to our vehicles. And I think just what you've done there is you've really made Sash's point for him.
And just how I'm a yob, and also I will be blacking out the windows on my car as well. So
yeah, I've also blacked out my windows. So
you guys, I mean, Rob, for instance, yours is like, what are you like smoking pot in there or something? Like,
no,
it's just
no.
Like,
I mean, there's actually legitimate reason for me to have the windows dark at 40% tint, and that is because it's hot here. And sunshine makes the inside of your car, as you're aware, for the 2 days when it's hot in the UK, pretty unbearable. Now, if you multiply that by about 20, or you get some idea of how hot an untinted car gets in the desert, and that is why the tint is probably a little bit darker than it should be. But anyway, that's why it's.
I have no excuse.
Like sunglasses. Think of it like sunglasses for your car that are permanently on. Except the windscreen, where I'm not allowed to tint the windscreen. So that
I was going to say. So what happens when some sun hit your liquid air freshener in your car, Rob?
Well, you see, that also is a problem. That's why I now have a little tree.
I mean, yeah, we did discuss this previously. So Mike, you want to slam an E36, black out the windows, put a spoiler on the back, put, I don't know, fenders on it, or machine guns or what have you.
Love to put over fenders on it as well. You're just reading my mind there, Sash.
Well, God, Jesus Christ. So that's kind of what you're aiming for.
Are you trying to be a 90s German drug dealer or something?
That's exactly the look I'm going for, Rob. That is
in North Devon.
On the head. Yes, in Devon somewhere.
You are going to get pulled over by Her Majesty's Devon and Cornwall Constabulary every other minute because they're going to go, oh, there's that ruffian over there in his E36 Mercedes. He's definitely out dealing drugs. I'll go and pull him over now. Oh, no, It's all right. He's just selling grass. He told me he was just selling grass. Grass is good. Cows eat grass.
Can I? I mean, that's probably going to happen. I mean, you guys are more familiar with Devon than I am because I'm not from that part of the. Well, it's a separate world as far as I'm concerned. But the point that I want to make is that what happened to this dream of you were mentioning, Mike, about maybe getting something more practical like an Audi S4 estate. Is that still on the cards?
It's all still on the cards. It's always still on the cards.
God, everything's always on the cards, Mike. I lose track sometimes. I mean,
these tarot cards or something. You pull a different reading out every week.
So
what car should I buy? Oh,
he just goes to Auto Trader and goes eeny, meeny, miny, mo, and then he just thinks about whatever he's last picked.
Oh, you should see the emails that come through for car updates on Auto Trader. It's a list as long as my arm every morning. Just new car's been updated. Just have to go through them all every day.
Well, chaps, I mean, if you're lacking, and maybe this can help me as well. In answer to your question, Rob, I don't know what project thing I'm going to do yet. And I'll go on to what idea I may have, but which you might be surprised about. But I'm actually just bought the latest edition of Top Gear magazine, plug, And
weekly.
Yeah, exactly. And Car Throttle, you might as well get a plug because we'll probably talk about you. And we know that you are listening
unpaid
to
promotion alert.
You are, exactly, because we know that you are listening to these podcasts, because I've noticed that thanks to you, Rob, Alex has bought a Saab as well for the channel. So obviously it's great content, and it all starts with the Stories of Sash podcast. So that's where all these great ideas
the
come
Grand
from.
Tour, Top Gear Magazine, Fifth Gear, Car Throttle podcast, they're all listening to this content. There are 4 listeners, to be fair.
Well, actually, I do have something to mention on the Grand Tour front, but I won't bring that up yet because it's not relevant at the moment. But I've just been looking at the latest magazine, and there's a section on it. What appealed to me is front cover, and I think I sent you a photo the other day, chaps, 10K retro heroes, right? Big thrills, small money, own the world's coolest cars for the price of a Dacia Sandero. Sounds like a catching headline, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. Well, so I'm going to read you out some of the examples, and you may have to type out some of these.
Hang on a minute. What about the project car thing? Are we done with the project car thing?
No. This relates to the project car.
This relates to the project car. Oh, right. Okay. Sorry. Carry on.
So, looking at some of the stuff on here, right? Some of it does look quite tasty, I have to say. Some of it, I'm unsure. So, you guys know that I'm a big fan of Italian cars. We know this, right?
Yes.
And there's
but not good ones.
Well, maybe I might be able to change your mind. So on here, there's a couple of Italian cars listed underneath. So how they've divided it is they've stated the obvious choice of vehicle. So say like a coupe, for example, that's relatively cheap and what everyone goes for. So in this example, they've used the Audi TT, right? As an example, because I think that is a relatively safe bet. There's quite a lot of them around. Now, then after that, they've gone the interesting ones, and I'd like to champion the Alfa Romeo Spider /GTV from sort of the late 90s to early 2000s sort of era as an interesting choice. And they've actually put down price ranges between £2,000 to £12,000, right? Obviously, depending on spec. Now, I think that could make quite a good project car potentially. I don't know what
your V6 one.
Well, the 3-litre V6 you can get for that price range, but you have to pay more. And there is an ongoing debate as to whether the V6 is actually the superior model or not, because a lot of people criticise the V6 for being too front nose heavy when the car was already quite front biased anyway, and they say that the twin spark is more balanced. But that's not really relevant to the conversation. I would love a V6 one. But you're looking more around the £5,000 mark for one of them.
I mean,
so hang on. So in terms of the concept surrounding the project car you're going for, is you're looking for like you're looking in the sort of convertible sports car area,
not
sort of restoring a car to its former glory versus kind of what Mike wants to do, which is take a perfectly functioning, respectable car and turn it into an eyesore.
Yes, pretty much. Yeah, I'm more for restoration, getting a car looking as though it just came out the factory, rather than, in your words, ruining the car.
Interesting. Two valid.
Very different.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
so I mean, my only concern.
I'm not sure which one's going to be more expensive. That's going to be the interesting one, because I think, Sash, based on your ethos around the Italian car, you're probably going to end up spending more money.
Probably, yes. You're
and
right.
And Mike is going to look more foolish.
Yeah, I will look stylish, but I will also be bankrupt. Whereas
Sash
Mike
will spend more money on his car. I'll spend more money on my court fees. So
Sash will look stylish, but also be stationary.
Well, so I just like to point out. I'll read you some of the other ones. I won't go into too much detail now, as sort of interesting classics, right? And again, you might have to type some of these out. So one of them they've listed is Mike. You might quite like this, I think, or Rob, actually, because it's not Italian. It's a Mercedes. It's a Mercedes SL from the mid-90s. Oh, it's the SL R129, which is kind of like the really boxy looking one from the 90s.
Pick one of those up for £10,000.
Five. You can get them for £5,000. They're cheap.
Really?
Yeah. They're cheap.
I actually really, really, really like those old school SLs.
I know you would. They're not personally my cup of tea. I'm not going to lie. The thing is about the SL, and this one's included. I think the SL looks good. Like throughout all the eras of the different versions of the SL, they always look. They don't seem to date horrendously. They always seem to look relatively timeless. The design is quite elegant, but this one I'm not so sure. I think this is probably the worst. It's like the Mark III Golf, probably or / Mark IV. It's probably the worst out of the SL ranges.
See,
in
I
my
disagree.
opinion.
It's one of the best looking ones. If it's the one that I'm thinking of.
If you type in R129, that's the code name for this era of Mercedes.
I'm having a look.
Yeah, but
I'm a big fan.
R129.
Yeah. So, if I understand correctly,
controversial.
It is controversial. Rob, you'll prefer the one before this generation. I don't know Mercedes code names, so you'd have to look it up. But my favourite SL is actually the original SL, because I think that is such a great piece of design. The Bobby Ewan one afterwards, which is the one I think you like, Rob. That's nice. This one I'm just not so sure. But anyway, that's one of the examples. Another one of the examples is the Citroen CX-25 GTI Turbo. Right, you might have to Google that because it's not. But I love that. That's great.
Citroen. Say that again. Citroen
CX-25 GTI Turbo.
25 GTI Turbo. What in the name of all that's holy have I just Googled?
I like big Citroens.
What is that?
They do beautiful
as well.
That's got that monopile steering thing.
It has. I love that. That's great. That is a fantastic piece of design.
Depends on how you what your definition of fantastic is.
So can I just ask a quick question on those ones, Sash?
Yeah.
How quickly do those rear arches rust out?
Yes.
Extremely. And it's also got very complicated hydropneumatic suspension, which typically leaks. And I think this particular car was like the Rolls Royces of the eras, where they used hydraulics. So if the hydraulics go, your brakes go and your steering goes.
Oh,
well, it's quite inconvenient. I'm not sure about that one, but I think it's the same. Not sure, but that's quite nice. But then, if you want something, if you guys are probably thinking, "Oh, that's a bit old. I want something a bit newer." You can get a Maserati Quattroporte, 4.2 litre V8.
Maserati's come out.
Maserati's. It's a good choice. I say it's a good choice. It's a great. You'd look badass in one of them. But
I'll tell you what Citroens I do like. Sorry, going to completely off the reservation is the Citroen DS.
I love the original DS. Yeah,
which is what that's made me think of. Because of the closed-in rear wheel arches. Yeah, the Citroen DS is a really nice looking car.
Exactly. Unfortunately, they're a bit out of the price range, but they look lovely. I love the original DS. And then, sorry, if you want fast cars, though, there's a section on fast cars. Now, Mike, you'll approve of both of these vehicles because they both scream angry yob. So one of them is a classic I mean, it's a bit expensive, this one, but it's a BMW Alpina B10 E39 V8. So in essence, what they've done is they've taken, because of that era of BMW, they took the 4.4 litre V8 that you could get in them and just Alpina'd it up and put nicer wheels, blah, blah, blah. So it's not quite like M5 fast, but it's not M5 price either. That's the one that you like. Well, yeah, but not, I mean, it depends on spec and condition. But the other one, which I think you'd love, is a Honda Integra Type R.
Ooh,
and actually,
I don't know if you can get those for 10 grand, mate. You'd be surprised.
It says on here 8 to 20 grand.
Yeah, I was going to say, in good condition, they can go like 15 plus.
Yeah. No, you're right. And just
I think that's an interesting one, mate. I didn't know you'd go for the Integra.
I'm not saying I would. I'm just saying these are one of the recommendations on this particular column. Okay. But but there's other ones as well, like the Peugeot 106 Rally, and finally probably my favourite actually, Porsche 944.
Yeah, big fan.
What's our thoughts on the Porsche 944, chaps?
Definitely right in your price range there, and also, fairly all right. I actually saw one for sale the other day for a couple grand, but it was a non. So good luck with that.
But you hang on, you want to restore this to factory fresh?
No. I mean, factory fresh might be a strong statement. I mean, it's something that maybe is slightly tired, a bit ropey, which is for a 30-year-old car, it will be, obviously, and just needs some love and TLC. It's not just be, but something you could work on the weekends and get up to form a goal. The only trouble I'm having, I mean, they've got other examples like Bentleys and Range Rovers in this example as well, but they're too big, and that comes on back to capacity. So obviously, I've only got a single garage, right? So it's kind of an interest to get something maybe smaller rather than bigger, right? Now the Porsche, I mean, it's not a massive car, but and probably for modern standards, it probably looks quite small. But there's actually one suggestion on this magazine which I've left deliberately till last, and it's actually been one of my favorite cars, and it is the original Fiat 500.
Yeah.
Tiny car.
Absolutely tiny, but also I don't think you'd really enjoy driving it as much.
I mean, it would certainly be an event. That's
It would
for sure.
be. But do you know what I've got in my head that I think that you should do anyway?
Go on.
I think you should just go for the Maserati. Like, if you've done the Alfa Romeo, you might as well just go all in and get the worst, most broken Maserati you can, and just see how much money you can put into it.
No.
Buy a Lancia.
Oh, a Lancia, that's
Ooh.
a great shout.
That's very good shout.
On your Maserati point, Mike, as much as I'd love to, it's almost, even though it's not a new car anymore, it's almost too new for my liking when it comes to working on cars.
Yeah,
especially one with
like,
that sophisticated Ferrari-derived V8 and one of the most complicated and, well, just terrible gearboxes, in especially in the early ones. So I probably wouldn't want to touch that myself with a barge pole, if I'm honest with you. But a Lancia, quite possibly. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure, and it's up for debate. But actually, Rob, before you actually came online, I actually said to Mike something that you might find very surprising. So on the subject of space, maybe to ease myself in, it shouldn't even be a car. Maybe it should be a motorcycle.
Who are you, and what have you done with Sash and Ibyagmai? Mike, we have an imposter. Who is this? What's happened?
You're flabbergasted, aren't you?
He's been abducted by aliens, and this is an alien in a Sash suit is on the call this week.
Well, guys, I've become more mature, you know.
He's sensible with his money. He's bought a diesel, and now he wants to get a motorbike.
To be fair, if you're going to have the Saab as the daily, a motorbike is probably, because the Saab is deathly boring. A motorbike.
Well, I won't have that said.
back into
I
your
won't
life.
have that said about the Saabs. Leave Sally alone. Sally the Saab is.
Sorry, hang about. What did you call it?
Sally the Saab.
I don't know.
Named your car.
I name all of my cars. This is what I don't get. None of you guys name your cars because you're soulless.
It's a piece of machinery.
Oh my god! But they're not though. There's so much more than that. You develop a relationship with a car and so on. I won't go into it now. But so what this is what I'm trying to say, chaps. Thoughts, suggestions, good, bad, terrible.
Motorcycle's an interesting one. You don't have a license for a motorcycle though.
This is all right. So Rob, we had a quick chat about this before you came online, and Sash said, "Oh no, I don't need to get a license for it." I was like, "What the hell are you getting a bike for and doing it up if you're not going to ride it?"
Well, the thing is though, Mike, it's about mechanical. I quite like fixing things and restoring things, and a motorcycle doesn't take a lot of room, right? And as well as that, they're very simple to work on. I mean, don't get me wrong, and I'd like to say, and I know we discussed this on a previous podcast, Mike. I don't know what you've just sent me, by the way, but we'll go on to that in a minute. That's Rob actually.
It's probably not relevant, but carry on.
It's definitely not relevant. That's scarred me actually.
It is correlated, by the way, for the listeners.
But as I've said before, I've done a fairly, I'm not one. I've done fairly good, big repairs on cars before. Mainly Fiat Cinquecentos, I must admit. So I feel like a motorcycle should be comparatively easier.
They are cheap as well.
And they are cheap.
No, that's fine. I'm not. My only hesitation is that you could do work on it and then you can't test ride it to make sure that it works properly.
Well, I could do it around the. I could do it around the estate where I live.
Do you even know how? Do you even know how motorbike works to drive, Sash?
No, I've never.
Gearbox.
No, I've never ridden a manual motorbike. I've only done twist and go. But how hard can it be?
It's not difficult. But
let's face it, thugs drive motorbikes anyway, and they manage it. So I'm sure I can manage it. You see, you're really filling me with confidence, chaps. So,
I think you probably should at least do a CBT and maybe get a 125.
CBT. Yeah, but I've already done a CBT. Yeah, I know I need to redo it, but I'd just like to point something out. I'm the only one here that's actually ever ridden something with two wheels on the road before.
I mean, on the road, yes.
Yeah, I was going to say, on the road, you are correct.
None of you have ever had a CBT. I've had a CBT.
No, but I have ridden bikes, just not on the road.
Yeah, I know, but it doesn't.
We know how they work.
I am the most experienced motorcyclist.
On the road.
On the road. Well, experienced in general. You know.
If we had to ride motorbikes in anger, any of us, I would like to back myself and Mike that we would be better at it than you are.
No, I'm not only the most qualified driver, but I'm the most qualified motorcycle.
Hang on, by what possible metric are you the most qualified driver?
Well, you know, I've done the what do you call it? What's the course called?
Speed awareness course?
No, I've actually done one of them as well. What's the other course?
Parking awareness course?
No.
When you did the speed awareness course, was it aware of the fact that you can do more than 30 miles an hour in your Fiat Cinquecento?
No, it's because it could do more than 30 miles an hour. They just gave me the ticket because they were amazed that it could do that. No, there's a course that you can do. Oh, I've done the Advanced Member of Motoring Institute course or whatever. Oh, I can't remember what it's called.
That's just how to hold the gear knob.
No, that's good. And as well as that, I've had my license for the longest. Therefore, I am the most experienced.
Okay, I'm not your license for the longest.
No, Rob, let's just leave him be.
Okay. the point I'm trying to make, chaps, is that I'm a better driver than both of you. And
I won't have that said. How many accidents have you had, Sash?
Very little. Very little. Very little.
So still greater than zero, though.
Well, I wouldn't classify it as an accident. You know, somebody bumped into me. It's not my fault.
Who is at fault? Who was by the legal definition?
We were both at fault.
Right, exactly. So
it doesn't mean that I was solely
legally speaking, you were at fault. It's cost you money on your insurance for 5 years because you lost your no claims bonus because you, admittedly, I'm on your side here, mate, but you have had an accident. So by your own fucking definition, you're not a fantastic driver, are you? You also took 2 goes to do your test. Crowd sock in it.
But they also say the best drivers pass second time, and I got 0 miles.
Nobody says that. Stop saying that as a thing. Nobody ever says that. Nobody says, "Oh, do you know what? That pilot who took 7 goes to get his pilot's license, yeah, he's going to be better than the guy who fucking did it first time."
No, seven's a bit much, though, Rob. I think you're over-exaggerating.
Having to do a test more than once doesn't make you good at it. I was not good at A levels. I had to redo it.
Oh, you took my joke. That's what I was going to say.
Funny.
Yeah, but it doesn't make you a worse engineer because you had to take your A levels twice.
Yeah.
No, A levels are slightly different than degrees. I didn't have to take my degree twice.
No, you didn't. But you know, it doesn't. It's not really the point, though, Rob. The point that I'm trying to make is that what project car should I have? Why have we ended up in this conversation?
Because you
quite
ride a motorbike without a license because you just think you're the best driver ever.
Well, no, I'd get a license because that'd be illegal. But
right.
You know,
then all of this was because you said you wouldn't get a license, and now you say
my interest is more restoration rather than because I don't know nothing about bikes, chaps, as you know. So I don't know what feels good on a bike or what doesn't. I wouldn't be able to say, Can
I make a suggestion that it's probably not a good idea to have that as a project then?
No, I think it is. It's cheap, easy, small. We could be all right.
Okay.
I think
it will be something that you can sort of learn to ride on, especially if you're going to be doing a restoration, because whatever you get is going to have a tiny engine. So if you're learning to ride on it, you're not going to be jumping on a bloody Hayabusa anytime soon, are you?
It's food for thought, chaps. I think that's the point that I'm trying to make. If not, it's going to have to probably be a small-ish vehicle.
It'll be an NX5. Let's be real.
Oh, I don't know. I don't.
Do you want a track car? So there's three ways of looking at this. Mike wants to be a hooligan and convert his car into a drive-through cruiser. Sash, you want to restore something to factory freshness. I have another alternate discussion point on the point of project cars, because I too have been considering getting a project car.
Christ.
No. What? What are we all doing?
I have been thinking about buying a beaten up 4x4 and making it into a dune basher.
Ooh, that's very interesting.
That is
Thinking about
very interesting.
Taking the bumpers off so it has like a nice departure angle, lifting the suspension, putting big knobbly tires on it, like a roof tent.
I mean, you're in the prime position to do it, Rob. I'd say if you want to do it, I give you all of my yes. You should do it.
Because I went camping
agree.
the other week in the middle of nowhere in the desert where there's no light pollution. You can see the stars nicely. The problem with it was we went down like a dirt track, and everybody else also knew where that dirt track was, and they arrived in their Nissan Sunnies. What I want to be able to do is head off the dirt track and into the dunes where there are no people and see the stars from there, and I don't have to put up with other people's barbecues.
The thing is, though, Rob, your Golf's got four-wheel drive, has it not?
Was you suggesting I should make a Golf R monster truck?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And actually, Rob, I actually give you full go ahead with that. I think that's a great idea. I mean, a little forward. Funny enough, the person who's actually next to this garage that I'm going to be getting actually owns an old Land Rover Defender that he's working on as well. And I think it's a great idea.
Sash.
Huh?
Were you looking to get a Land Rover?
I was, but then I realised it was a terrible idea.
I have a funny anecdote about Land Rovers.
What's that?
Well, not Land Rovers, Range Rovers specifically, because Mike might be able to back me up here. I think that sales of the Range Rover and Range Rover derivatives in the Middle East probably prop up JLR. And Mike might be able to testify that the same is true of Saudi Arabia, where he's worked for some time.
What, a lot of Land Rovers out there?
A lot of Range Rovers.
Yeah, a lot of Range Rovers, not actual. I'm going to make it very clear, not actual off-road vehicles.
No.
Yeah.
What was funny is the other weekend when they went into the desert, there was somebody who'd brought their Range Rover with them and has taken it into the dunes. And at the first sight of anything remotely off-road-ish, it stopped working. It was a 2019 model, and they basically managed to get it back on the road, and then its starter motor packed up. Not even something remotely related to the running gear of having to go off-road. The starter motor gave up. It just went, no, I don't like this.
I think that's just something you have to accept if you are a Land Rover owner. That it just won't always work. And actually, chaps, this kind of leads very quickly to my final point, really, which is actually turning cars into off-road cars. And again, this is another plug, which I'm sure you appreciate, for the Grand Tour. Now, I don't know if any of you have seen, but the trailer for the new special came out yesterday, the Madagascar special, the long-awaited special. Has anyone seen it?
I've seen the trailer, yeah.
Yeah. Well, funny enough, and I don't know whether I've actually mentioned it before, but one of the cars on there that James May is driving is a Caterham. Now, my friend actually works for Caterham, and part of the challenge was, I think, they basically make them more suitable for off-road like they normally do, etc. And he actually worked on the car that they converted into being off-road ready. So if you can make a Caterham off-road, you can make anything off-road. So this goes back to the original point, Rob, which is turn your Golf R into a Range Rover.
Oh, please do.
Let me think about that. No, I'm not going to do that.
So I mean, no, in just that's
what I'm contemplating. I'll tell you my strategy is that work is selling off quite a lot of our old 4x4s, and they're all super old. They've all got more than like 300,000 kilometers on them. What I'm thinking is I could pick up one of the old Pajeros and use that as a starting point, as my first endeavor into building an off-road project car.
I think that's
if it's cheap, mate, you know what my answer will be.
If it's cheap, yes. Well, Mitsubishi's basically indestructible.
Yeah, that too.
Because I mean, we know this from many experiments that have been done over the years by various people that Mitsubishi's cannot be killed. And
I just want to point out, I think that rule does generally apply to Japanese cars in general.
Yeah.
Just going to put that out there, like they're just pretty bulletproof. But yeah, I agree.
There's plenty of plenty of people who are selling accessories. So taking a sort of a leaf out of Mike's book in terms of the accessorizing your vehicle, as opposed to sashing, restoring it to factory fresh, because who really wants a factory fresh Mitsubishi Pajero? And so obviously you have to accessorize the vehicle with things. There's quite a lot of people who do that.
A spoiler on it.
Pardon?
Are you going to slam it and put a spoiler on it?
No, because those two things don't really help you in the whole dune bashing equation. You're not really looking for downforce and sort of lateral stability. You're more looking at sort of wheel articulation and departure angles and trying not to roll over when you go sideways down a dune.
On the E36, I'm also not looking for downforce or lateral stability. I won't lie.
I mean, I was thinking about getting a roof rack and a roof tent so that I can do camping. And the roof tent is good because I can do camping away from the snakes and the scorpions.
Yeah, that'd be all right.
That might work as a spoiler when you get a bit of forward momentum going.
Possibly, chats, possibly. But I think so. Just to sort of summarize and wrap this up, as we, we're approaching roughly about our hour mark. So what we've concluded is Mike is going to get a BMW E36 as a project car. Rob's going to get a form of off-roader, and I might get a motorcycle
or a Maserati.
I think
or both.
Or no, that would kill me. I can't have both. One of them, either I'd be killed by falling off the motorcycle or killed by financial bankruptcy from the Maserati. It's one of those two things. So I think that sort of wraps up today. I just want to sort of end it on a final point. Next time, it's been really good chatting to you chaps. We're going to talk about our parents' vehicles. So we're going to do our homework, come back whenever we next can meet and talk about our parents' and see whether we can string any correlation between what our parents have owned and what we drive and what our interested cars are. I think we already know the answer to one of our colleagues on here because his imagination doesn't spring very far, but you'll be surprised about a couple of the others perhaps. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned for whenever that comes out, and I will play the outro music in a minute. But thank you very much, chaps, for joining, and see you again soon. And I hope your bowels are okay, Rob. By the end.
Can you just cut? I was like, we're going to cut that. Are we going to cut the podcast there?
Yes.
Right.